that there might be someone who would be more credible than I. And this person is 54 years of age, former prosecutor, grandfather was a chief of police for the city of Yonkers. And in July of 2013, the President of the United States selected him to be the 7th FBI director of this country, which is the chief law enforcement officer, and his name is Director Comey, a 10-year term. And while speaking at Georgetown University a couple of weeks ago, he said, listen, there's a little bit of racism in everybody. And I quote, and further he went on to say, all of us in law enforcement must be honest enough to acknowledge that much of our history is not pretty. At many points in American history, law enforcement has enforced the status quo. A status quo that was often brutal and unfair to the disfavored groups. Now, we know the first director of the FBI was J. Edgar Hoover, who tenaciously went after Dr. Martin Luther King. However, it would appear that the new and current director of the FBI thinks differently, recognizes and acknowledges publicly that there is a problem in terms of the law enforcement community interacting and relating to the community at large, and more specifically, the community of people of color. So, I can illustrate over the last several years cases that have occurred where people of color have been literally executed by police officers. Eleanor Bumpers in the Bronx, no indictment. Amadou Diallo, shot 19 times, several times in the bottom of his feet. Now, to shoot someone in the bottom of the feet suggests to me that the person was on the ground, not standing, and that this person was apparently a danger because his keys, as he was using them to open up the door to his residence, appeared to be a weapon. No indictment. Not far from here, a young man leaving a social club in the evening was shot and killed by the local police. Not far from the Hawthorne State Police Barracks, the county police headquarters. Then, of course, we remember watching on TV some 20 years or so ago, Rodney King. And the anecdote is, believe me or believe your lying eyes. The police officers were indicted, but they were found not guilty. Most recently, there was a young man in Brooklyn who was ascending a flight of stairs, albeit they were darkened, with his girlfriend, and was shot and killed by what I believe to be a nervous police officer who should not have had his gun out of his holster. Okay? But in this particular case, ladies and gentlemen, the police officer in question was indicted. Keep that in the back of your mind. In this particular case, in Brooklyn, where Ken Thompson is the district attorney, the officer, albeit We don't think that he left home that morning intending to shoot anybody. Accidentally discharged his firearm and killed a man. But then let's go forward with Eric Gardner. Caught on video, Staten Island, was literally choked to death. There was an indictment. The case went to the grand jury, but there was no indictment. Richmond County and Queens. Then we all remember the Michael Brown fiasco, shot and killed by the Ferguson police officer. Hands up. How did that happen? It went to the grand jury. No indictment. There's one pending matter involving a youngster in Ohio, Tamir Rice, who was shot and killed by police who believed that the gun he was brandishing, as they use the term, was real. We come to find out that the police officer who shot him should never have been hired. That matter is still under investigation. But let me go for a minute and focus more on the grand jury and look at 3 case studies. Richmond County, Eric Gardner. Kings County, District Attorney is Ken Anderson, and that's where the young man Gurley was shot and killed. And another young man, the police stepped on his head, that was on video, and he's stomping his head. He indicted him as well. And St. Louis County with Eric Gardner. Now, the grand jury is a very interesting component and key part of our criminal justice system. Word within the criminal justice community is that the district attorney can indict a ham sandwich if he or she so desires. It is their tool. It is their tool to move a case forward into the Supreme Court here, as we have in the state of New York, or in county court as you have in Westchester County. Now, the grand jury is a little bit different than the trial jury, which can consist of between 6 and 12 people. The grand jury consists of between 16 and 23 people. It's a secret process. Witnesses are called. The only attorney in the room is the district attorney. The witness before the grand jury is not asked any questions directly. The questions are put by the grand jurors to the district attorney, who in turn puts them to the witness. Predicated upon what information the district attorney presents to the grand jury, they can do a couple of things. One, they can issue what's called a no true bill, meaning person that we were thinking about arresting, you can go home. The case is dismissed. Two, they can issue a true bill, which is an indictment, which means that the case now will move from the grand jury into the courtroom. Normally, the Supreme Court here in the state of New York, or superior courts in other jurisdictions in the country. Or they can send it back to a lower court and treat the matter as a misdemeanor. And what's so fascinating about this process and about these 3 case studies, St. Louis County, Ferguson, Richmond County, Eric Gardner, Kings County, where the district attorney is Ken Thompson, is that Thompson is the only district attorney who has indicted a police officer for allegedly doing the wrong thing. Now again, I don't believe, and I'm sure the district attorney in that county doesn't believe, that Officer Liang left home that morning intending to shoot somebody in the hallway. That's why he was not charged with, or the grand jury was not given the opportunity to charge him with murder in the first degree, or murder in the second degree, or manslaughter 1. The grand jury was asked to consider whether his actions were compatible with the provisions of manslaughter in the second degree. Manslaughter in the second degree is recklessness. In other jurisdictions around the country, it's called criminally negligent homicide. So, why is it that the district attorney in the county of Richmond, Staten Island, why is it that the district attorney in St. Louis County in Missouri are so reluctant to release information as to what options they presented to the grand jury to charge the potential accused? And let's play the scenario out. If in the Eric Gardner case in Staten Island, where we all saw the police officer literally grab him from behind, strangle him and bring him down, yes. You can believe me or you can believe your lying eyes. So, did the district attorney in Staten Island give the grand juries the option of saying that the police officer didn't intend to do this? Or did he say, was it murder 1 or murder 2? And that's why they want to keep that matter secret. Same thing with Ferguson in St. Louis County in Missouri. I say to you that the other thing we look at, and I will be closing, is that the district attorney in Brooklyn, Ken Thompson, who was in place since 2013, has exonerated 11 people who have been in prison since the 1980s, wrongfully indicted, convicted, and sentenced to terms of imprisonment. 9 of them were released. The other 2 died in prison. Unprecedented. It's important that you vote for people who represent your interest.
That's right.
So important. So I close out keeping this, I have my notes here. Well, I'll take questions if there are any. Oh, there's one other thing I'd like to say. You know, I can put this information out to you, but what can be done? 1, vote for people that represent your interests. 2, the FBI director said that there's a federal program called Cops and Coffee, where they will pay jurisdictions to have police officers go into communities, minority communities, and sit down and have coffee with people who look like you and I look, instead of riding by with the windows rolled up. To get to know and understand and feel. They'll pay for it. That kind of strategy, this organization can take to their representative houses of worship, to their police chiefs and or commissioners, and say, it's there. There are options. It's not all doom and gloom. Thank you so much. What Thompson has done, has said by his actions and his background, he's a former federal prosecutor, is that we must look beyond these folks who are going snooping around trying to find evidence and information and look at what really happened and treat everyone fairly. It makes no difference who you are. If you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And on a personal note, there's several people who used to work with me and wore a uniform who are in Attica right now. I have no problem putting you away. Right is right, wrong is wrong. There's room in the prison system for you.
And on that note,